Okay, so welcome everybody. We're sitting here in the rain, which is fantastic because we're sitting here while we're doing a mitzvah, and I'm going to do this mitzvah together with you. We are here and we are assembling the Lulav. Do you see this? I hope everything's good. Here's the Lulav. Do you see it? Here we go. Here's the Lulav. Here is the Aravot. There is the Hadassim. Here are the rings of how we're going to put it together according to the custom of Chabad. Let me put in my AirPods or Samsung pads, whatever you call it, so that we could hear each other even if I turn the phone. Okay, so watch this. You see this? Here's the Lulav. We're sitting here in the Sukkah. Sukkot begins tonight. Here is the Lulav now. The Chabad custom is we first take 2 rings. Okay, 2 rings. You see it? 2 rings. And we put it on the Lulav proper to keep the Lulav in place from getting too flimsy. You don't want the Lulav to get too flimsy. I'm going to do that. And bear with me over here so that we can get this done. I don't want this to take too long. But as I'm doing this, I'm going to try to take a moment to explain some stuff about the holiday of Sukkot, as well as what we're doing here with the Lulav and Esrog. Now here, the Lulav, I am binding the Lulav first, as I mentioned, so it's not too flimsy. I will bind it with 2 rings that go onto the Lulav itself. Okay? Now, the Torah says, this is in the Bible, the Torah says that on this holiday you should take, lakachtem lochem, you should take for yourself a kapot marim, the leaves of a palm tree. I'm getting wet here in case you're wondering. Yes, I am getting wet and the rain is getting harder, but it's okay. It's just a bissel Wasser. We're doing a mitzvah over here and we are doing it excitedly. This is, as I say in the introduction, the most joyous holiday of the year. The Torah says, "V'hayisam ach sameach." You should be only joyous. Only joyous means that there is no room for anything else. Anything that pulls you down, you should be, you should get rid of. And if the Torah says you can, then you should. Okay, so here we go. Now we have, let me take another 3 rings. And this is what we're going to do while we're in the rain. You see these 3 rings? You see the Lulav? You saw it again? Not too difficult to see that. And we tie another 3 circles, another 3 knots here. I know I don't have a fantastic photographer here. Another 3 knots over here, another 3 loops that we're going to leave for the Hadassim and the Aravot. So if you know what Hadassim and Aravot is, I assume you do. If you have seen it before, I will show it to you in a moment, but right now it's pouring rain like you haven't seen. But that's okay. It's actually not pouring, it's raining. It's raining. Nicht gefährlich. But let me explain a quick thought, because if it gets to be too wet, we're going to have to cut this video short. If it gets to be too wet, this is all. Let me explain the following. If you notice, and you know from other years, that we take 4 species. We take 4 species. We take the Lulav, we take the Arava. The Lulav is the palm tree branch. We take the Hodas, which is the willow. Here, you see it? The willow. This is the willow. This is the myrtle. This is the myrtle, okay? This is the willow branch. And then we take the Esrog, which I don't have here right now because we don't need it. We take the Arava, you see, and we place it on the right side and on the left side of the Lulav, okay? Now I'm going to take all these Hadassim. These are 12 Hadassim. Now by basic halacha, by basic law, 3 Hadassim is enough, but somehow in Chabad, I'm not exactly sure why, I want to be honest, there is a custom to do a lot of Hadassim. There's some who do 6 Hadassim, there's some who do 12, 13, and even more. So we're taking the Hadassim over here, you see, just that you see what I'm doing over here. We're taking the Hadassim and we're loading it up in here. We're just loading up the Hadassim right here, okay? And as a general idea, of course, one of the reasons why we take all these different species is because it represents the harvest And this is the time of the year when it was the gathering, as the Torah says, of the different harvests. And it is a time to thank Hashem for all the blessings, to thank God for all the blessings, which is why this is the holiday, although every Jewish holiday is Simcha, but this is the holiday when we focus totally on joy. Chag Samiach, there's an extra mitzvah during the month of Sukkot to be joyous, to be besimcha. So here I'm tightening this up. You can see for yourself. Over here, I'm tightening up the rings over here. And let's go, and then I'll give you a quick insight into the holiday. And I hope that you appreciate and enjoy and find meaningful the thought that I plan to share. So as I started to say, we know there's the 4 different species. You have the willow, you have the palm, and you have the etrog. Richtig, the etrog, which is the beautiful fruit, which, by the way, if you want to know how much an etrog costs, keep on going higher. You could get an estrog for very low, but you could find an estrog for that, and I don't have the estrog here, I left it at home. I'm sitting here at the shul sukkah, but you could get an estrog for as much as probably over $1,000, because it's the only thing in the Torah that the Torah says specifically that it should be beautiful. So we want to have a beautiful estrog, and a beautiful estrog means the shape is beautiful, there's no marks, there's no schmutz, it's purely yellow or green. That's all what it entails. If you want to go to the market and buy a beautiful esrog, the esrog has to, it has nice bumps. It has to come from a place where you know that it has not been grafted with a lemon. There are some dealers who might graft it with a lemon because it makes it easier to grow nicely and they can get a higher price. So you need to have actually supervision. There's rabbinic supervision that they go to Italy or to other places to make sure that it's a purebred etrog, which is from the lemon family, but it's not a lemon. There are various ways to tell, but we always rely. Chabad custom is that we go to Yaneve. Yaneve is a city in Italy where there's a tradition that Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert sent messengers to Yaneve to get a lulav and to get esrogim. So now a quick thought, which the Medrash says. The Medrash says something very beautiful. It's a very known thought, but we'll share it because it's that time of the year. The Medrash says these 4 species represent all different categories of the Jewish people, of human beings. The etrog has a taste and has a smell. So that taste represents Torah, as the verse says, V'toratcha betoch me'ai, your Torah is in my stomach. Torah is something you study, something you internalize, you take in. So something that tastes good is compared to Torah study, which is something you learn, you enjoy, you internalize, it becomes part of you. Smell represents a good aroma, pleasant. That's someone who excels in doing mitzvot, acts of goodness, kindness, and so on, is someone who has a good smell. So the etrog, which has both a smell and a taste, represents the individual who excels in Torah study and studying God's word, and also in doing many mitzvot. He has a good smell and good taste. The lulav, which is represented in the dates that grow on the lulav, represents a fruit that tastes good but doesn't necessarily smell anything specific or anything extraordinary. The etrog has a beautiful smell. In fact, people use the etrog year-round. Sometimes they stick in the cloves and they use it year-round for the havdalah, the psamim, the smelling of the spices on every Shabbos. At the end of Shabbat, they use the etrog. But the lulav represents something that has good eating, that has a fruit that it's good for eating, but not necessarily excels in having any special smell, representing the individual who excels in Torah study and excels just in Torah study. The hadas, the myrtle, you see the myrtle over here, this is the myrtle, has a good smell, it has a nice smell, but it's not a fruit. That represents the individual that excels in doing acts, good deeds, mitzvahs, and so on, but he doesn't necessarily excel in the study of Torah. So that's individual number 3. And then we have over here, we have the arava, right here, hiding a little bit. And that is the willow that has nothing special with regards to eating and nothing special with regards to smell. That represents the individual who unfortunately doesn't excel in either. He doesn't excel not in Torah study, and he doesn't excel in in mitzvos either. I'm just tightening up the lulav over here so it doesn't fall apart. Then we'll be able to give you full focus. Sorry for that little interruption. The beauty of this mitzvah is the following. You cannot fulfill the obligation by just taking the esrog. You might say to yourself, let me just take the esrog. The esrog represents the perfect human being. They excel in Torah study. They excel in mitzvot. Why not just go ahead and take the esrog? The perfect person. The answer is you will not fulfill your obligation by doing so. Only when you take all four species, representing the highest and most gifted and most devout individual, and the most simple, ignorant. I apologize for the interruption. I'm out here in the rain, and every time a raindrop falls on the screen, it turns it off. So please, I beg my apologies over here. Maybe I'll go out of the rain if it happens again. But here you have when this is a beautiful lesson. You cannot fulfill the mitzvah just with the etrog, even though that represents the perfect human being, excels in study, excels in good deeds, perfect. You have to go ahead. The esrog individual has to know he is not complete. You cannot fulfill the mitzvah unless he embraces and unites with what we call the arava individual. The arava is the individual who, unfortunately, for whatever reason, doesn't excel in anything, either because he wasn't properly educated or he wasn't properly guided, etc., etc. But in order to fulfill the mitzvah, you got to bring all four species, and everybody could learn from everybody. The etrog Jew has to be humble and know that he could learn from the simplest of people. Of course, the arava Jew has to look up to the etrog, or the arava individual. So here is the lesson of taking all four together, representing from the most gifted or the most committed to the simple of simple. Everybody comes together, and only then could you fulfill the mitzvah. And that is another reason why it's the mitzvah of joy, because it represents true unity, where everybody appreciates, respects each other. Everybody realizes the value. Everybody understands that everybody has something to bring to the table and to give, and that we're one, and that we're one family, we're one people. And if one separates from the other, you cannot do the mitzvah. It's not only that you're not helping that person, you are lacking, you're missing. Part of the message, the very important message of the bringing all species together, and only then can you fulfill the mitzvah. So I hope that is clear. There's another element of unity that's expressed very beautifully with the following story. I will say it's a story told, I believe, with the previous Rebbe, that there was, I mentioned before, an esrog has to be a beautiful fruit. And at one point, because everybody wanted to bless on the etrog of the previous Rebbe, so Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, so the esrog started to turn brown from everybody's touching. So they went to the previous Rebbe and they apologized that the etrog turned so brown, affecting the beauty of the etrog, which people spend so much money and so much care to make sure it's a perfect esrog. And the previous Rebbe responded that is the beauty of the esrog, when it starts becoming brown, because so many people of all backgrounds, of all levels, participated, and you helped them do a mitzvah. You brought them together to do the mitzvah on your etrog, and that's what the brown is from. Every brown spot that comes from that adds to the beauty of the esrog. So this all highlights the unity that this mitzvah represents. In addition to the underlying concept of every mitzvah, we do it because God told us so. God commanded us so we do it. So this year, I challenge you to make at Chabad, we have various mediums that you could do this beautiful mitzvah if you don't have your own estrog, lulav and estrog. You could come here to the synagogue sukkah. You could come on Shabbat, not tomorrow because Shabbat we don't take the lulav and estrog, but anytime from Sunday to Friday. You could come to we have a drive-in sukkah this year where you could actually drive your car, come right out of open your door, because you can't be in the car, you got to open the door, come out, and you could take the lulav, take the etrog. We're going to have hand sanitizer there, so you can be careful about that. We're going to have a little homemade delicious pastry, a cup of coffee, and you could start your day by coming through the drive-in sukkah, and somebody will help you with making a blessing on the lulav and estrog. Or we had called this year the Sukkah Dash, where the sukkah will come to your home or your business. All you got to do is go online and make an appointment. So please make our etrog more beautiful than it is even naturally. The natural beauty is that it's perfectly yellow, perfect bumps and so on. But you know, there's natural beauty to everything, but the way God made it is that when we add our initiative, that's the only way we can make things more beautiful. So if you're gifted, you were given good brains, you were given a good heart, you were given a good talent, that's all beautiful. But it becomes more beautiful when you add your initiative to those natural gifts. So too with the esrog. The Torah says it has to be beautiful, but that beauty on its is its natural beauty when you pick the esrog. But it becomes far more beautiful when we, meaning the person who does the mitzvah, adds the mitzvah, and in turn the esrog then adds a layer of brownness. That's a beauty that comes from our initiative, not from its natural state, and that's much more beautiful and much more dear in the eyes of God. So everybody should have a fantastic Yom Tov. I'm not going to give class Sunday morning, the usual Torah and coffee, because it's going to be the actual holiday. For the next 8 days is holiday, but the first 2 days is like Shabbat, the last 2 days is like Shabbat, culminating with Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah. The middle days is what's called Chol HaMoed. It's like a quasi-holiday state, but you could use phone and so on and communicate. So that's the story. I think I'm off the air.